So food in Hawaii is a really big deal, and a lot of people love to talk about food. I think it's one of our hobbies here, is to go out and eat and try new things. And so I thought it'd be fun to try a Hawaii food tier list, and these are just some of the local favorites, the foods that I think Hawaii is known for. It's not every type of food in Hawaii, obviously. It's just some of the major ones, and I wanted to kind of think about what were the top tier foods, some of my most favorite but really the best tasting food in my opinion, and sort of rank them down from S to A, B, C, and then D would be the lowest tier. I want to mention, because food is so important and very touchy, I guess, for some people, is that this list is just for me, and if there are other people who have different opinions, they may totally disagree with me. I would love to see their videos and their rankings as well in response to this, but this is just my list and my preferences. So with that, I have some food here that I put out, and the first food that I want to mention is acai bowls. And I tried acai bowls probably about 2 years ago. I know it's very big here in Hawaii. A lot of places on Oahu, they have acai bowls now, so I know acai bowls are very popular. If you haven't tried an acai bowl, it's basically like a fruit smoothie with a bunch of fruit all over it on top, and you just scoop it up with a spoon. So I would say, if I had to rank that and give it a tier list, I would say that would be S tier. It's really good. I don't know exactly how healthy it is. It might not be healthy, I don't know. But it's very sweet, and because it's very hot in Hawaii, especially now in the summer, it's so nice to have something where it's like very smoothie but not quite ice cream, and it's just very, very nice to have. All right, second on the list is saimin. And saimin is sort of like ramen, if you're familiar with ramen, but it's not like instant noodle ramen. It's something about the noodles and the broth, and it's one of the foods that I missed the most when I went away for the mainland. Not the most missed food for me, but it was one of the ones that I definitely missed. People love saimin here, and I think a lot of local kids grow up eating saimin. It's really quick to make, and it's very salty, but the noodles, you just can't find those noodles anywhere. So to me, saimin is an S tier food. It is one of the best foods in Hawaii, and I recommend that if you have the opportunity to go and try some, because it's so good, so good, so good. Especially if you get like cut up Spam in it. Oh, it's really good. The third food is a cocoa puff, and these are pastries, and I think the most famous one is Leei Ma Bakery, which now there are 3 locations on Oahu, but I think they serve cocoa puffs in other places. Cocoa puffs are very sweet. It's like a pastry with like usually a chocolate filling on the inside, and they put like some kind of sugary thing on the top, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I had them this past week, and we have them at the office. I had one at the office yesterday. Actually, it was really good. But cocoa puffs, where would I put that on the list? I probably would put it B. Yeah, I think B is fair, and I only say this because it's good, and if you have the opportunity, you should definitely try it. But in terms of where I think it ranks, it's just a pastry to me. To me, it's just a pastry. It's not like a meal, and it's not something where I guess I can see myself eating over and over again, because it is pretty sweet. Another thing about the cream puff that I should mention that I experienced yesterday was, as you're eating it, sort of like with any type of filled donut, as soon as you bite it, the other side, it starts to explode in your hand. So just be ready, you're gonna have sticky fingers after you eat one. All right, Haupia. Haupia is like this coconut dessert. It looks sort of like tofu, but it's not exactly the same. Now I'm just gonna say I'm not a big fan of coconut. I know we live in Hawaii, but I'm not a fan of coconut. So for me, anything coconut related, even my acai bowl, I have to make sure that it doesn't have coconut on it. But to me, Haupia, again, for me now, it is probably a bottom tier. It's a D tier food. They serve Haupia for desserts, and oftentimes at like luau's, if you go to get like a luau plate, which has like Kalua Pork and rice and lomi salmon and all these different types of foods, usually the dessert will be like a little cube of Haupia. There is a very popular pie here, the chocolate Haupia pie, which is really good, but we're just going straight up Haupia. For me, I usually pass on that. All right, the next food, hurricane popcorn. And this is a food that you could actually make on the mainland away, and I did when I was in college, my mom would ship me the ingredients to how to make hurricane popcorn, which is basically popcorn with kakimochi or rice cracker arare snacks, and furikake, which is just like seaweed and salt and sesame seed. You put it on your rice. This is such a good food. I wish I could eat it every single day. They actually serve little kits you can buy here, but also if you go to the theaters, they will sell you the things to make it, and then you could just make it yourself in the theater, which is so good. But hurricane popcorn to me is definitely S tier. It's super simple, but it's so good. All right, the next food. This is a staple for luau plates, like I mentioned earlier. Kalua pork or Kalua pig. My coworker said, if you call it Kalua pig, you're local. If you call it Kalua pork, you're from the mainland. I don't know. I call it Kalua pork, but Kalua pork or Kalua pig, it's really salty. And actually, we had that last night. I made it for dinner last night. It was really good. But it's a very, very salty. It's like pulled pork if you're from the mainland. It's very salty. I like how they make it. Very oily, but oh, it tastes so good with some rice on it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So because of that, I would say this is an A tier food. It's really good. It's not quite S tier. I could pass on it. I don't have to have it maybe every day, but it's pretty good. And I recommend that if you have the opportunity, give it a try. The next food is Lau Lau. And Lau Lau is like, it's sort of meat, usually Kalua pork or butterfish, wrapped in like a leaf. And the only equivalent I could think of to Lau Lau that maybe people would understand is like collard greens. When I went to the mainland, I tried collard greens and I was like, ooh, it looks terrible. But when I ate it, I thought, hey, this tastes sort of like Lau Lau, and it was really good. It doesn't look like much, and sometimes it can get a little slimy looking. But if you have Kalua pork with butterfish, oh, it tastes so good. They sell it in these packets, and all you have to do is just microwave it, heat it up, and you're ready to eat it with some rice. So it's really, really good. But I would put it, though, on the same level as Kalua pork. I'd say it's A tier, probably not a must-have for me, but it's really good. The next one, Leei Ma. What is that? In Hawaii, we have these stores, like candy stores. They're called crack seed shops, and there's all kinds of candy. A lot of the traditional candy, like gummy candy, and also these seeds that are dried out, and they're covered in this very tangy, sweet powder, and that's Leei Ma. I have to say I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it overpowers the taste of everything. But a lot of people really like it. A lot of my friends back in elementary school, they have the cracked seed with Leei Ma. You put it in your mouth, or you get the powder and you put it on popcorn, you put it on whatever, and you just eat it, and they liked it. But for me, Leei Ma, not good. So for me, that is going to join Haupia in the D tier. The next food is loco moco. If you haven't heard of it, it's this type of plate lunch dish that we have here. It's basically rice with hamburger and then eggs and then gravy over the whole thing. It's so good. And it's one of those things where, yeah, I couldn't make it when I was away, but it's that gravy that's so important. I always get a loco moco if I have the opportunity because it's the perfect Hawaii food. It's messy and high in calories, but it has rice and meat and eggs, and it tastes so good, especially after a long day. So for me, a loco moco is definitely S tier. It is in the top tier. Up next is Malasadas. We made a video about Malasadas earlier from Leonard's Bakery, but there's other places that sell Malasadas. It's basically a fried piece of dough with a lot of powdered sugar on it. And I made a video, I talked about my issues with eating a malasada. It's very messy. It's really good when it's warm, and it's pretty terrible when it's cold. So it's something to consider if you do end up eating a malasada. They're okay. I probably would rank it, I can't rank it above a Cocoa Puff, I feel like. The Cocoa Puff is better. So I think I'm gonna give it a C tier. I think that's fair. I think C tier is pretty fair. Now next is a manapua. Sounds kind of like malasada, but they're very different. The manapua is like a pork bun or a chicken bun or whatever you want to stick in it, but for the most part it's going to be this pork. and it's really good. It's especially good when it's warm. You can eat it for breakfast or lunch or dinner, although it's pretty good when you eat it for breakfast. What I like about it too is the fact that you can hold it and eat it and it's not very messy. So Malasadas, very messy. You take one bite and the sugar goes all over your hands, all over the floor. With the manapua, unless you're just sloppy and you're eating, when you take a bite, nothing should be falling out of it, and you just continue biting and eating it, and it's really good. There are two really distinct colors of the manapua on the inside, the meat in particular. Some like it red, some like it more brownish. For me, I don't really care. Either one is fine by me, but manapua, if you get a chance, you go Chinatown, you go to any type of Chinese restaurant, usually they'll have it. They even have it at 7-Eleven. So for manapua, I'm probably gonna put it... I want to put it an A tier, but I don't know if I can. Okay, I'm gonna put it as a B. I'm gonna put it as a B tier. I think B tier is pretty fair. The next one is shave ice, or for some people they call it snow cone, but you gotta call it shave ice. And I know it's shaved ice, as in shaved with a D, or is it shave ice? I think the proper way is shave ice, and it's on a hot day you really can't beat shave ice. I love shave ice. If there's anywhere that has shave ice, I will go and at least want to try it. I even bought my own shave ice machine because I was so tired of going out to go and wait in line and buy it myself. I'm like, I want it so much after, you know, after work or after a hot day. I'm just gonna make my own, and it's been great. But shave ice, there are a lot of flavors, a lot of fancy flavors here. To me, the most iconic flavor, it's got to be strawberry, and that's usually what I have. I usually have strawberry with something else like pineapple or grape or watermelon, but strawberry to me is the classic. It's how I sort of judge and view every of the shave ice shops that I do go to, and there's a lot here. So obviously you can tell I love shave ice. It is gonna go in the top tier. All right, the next food is poi, and poi is basically mashed up taro. It's a native Hawaiian food. They usually serve it with like luau plates. I am not a huge fan of poi. I guess it's just like the consistency and the look of the food. People love poi, but for me, not so much. I usually pass on poi, similar to how I pass on haupia, and so poi for me is gonna be a bottom tier, D tier. Yeah, I don't like it. All right, the next food. This one can get some people upset, but next food is poke bowl. Poke bowl is basically raw fish, usually tuna, and they mix it up with some sauce and some veggies, and then they put it usually on rice in Hawaii. It's super popular. People love poke bowls. That's the one food where I think most people are like, oh, that's the one food I miss when I go away and I want to come back. For me, I'm not a huge raw fish person, and I don't like the way that the fish is prepared with all that sauce and all those like little veggies and stuff. That mix to me is not good. I like the rice, of course, but for me, the poke bowl is not a food that I would miss. And so I know people would probably assume this would be a top tier food, but for me, it's actually gonna be a bottom tier food. And that's just because I don't like the raw fish, and that taste to me is not very good. But people love it. You can go eat it all over Hawaii, and they all have different tastes and flavors, but you're not gonna see me eating a poke bowl. The next food is pork hash, and I guess the closest to pork hash for the rest of the world, or for the mainland, would be like pot stickers or gyoza, something like that, where it's like a pork mash inside like a wrapper or something like that. I guess that's how you make it, but it's usually steamed, and so it's very soft, which I like. It's very sticky. I like the fact that when you bite into it, the meat and the wrapper, they're stuck together, so it's not very messy. Things don't fall out of this. It's one of my favorite foods, and if you go to Chinatown, you can get a lot of these for a pretty good price. Pork hash, they also have it at 7-Eleven, which is pretty good. I know 7-Eleven sounds strange, but pork hash is pretty good. I would say for me, pork hash probably gonna have to be an A tier. It's a good food. It's almost S tier, but I'd say it's definitely up there. The next food that we had just recently is Portuguese sausage, and Portuguese sausage is like kielbasa, right? It's like kielbasa, and it's this very peppered sausage. It's super oily, and so I remember when we grew up, we would cook it on the pan, and then you'd have to like blot it out with a napkin because it's so oily. But there's almost nothing like it on the mainland, like the exact taste. I don't know how they make it, but it's so good. It is part of a complete breakfast in Hawaii. If you want to have a Hawaii breakfast, you gotta have Spam, of course, but you really gotta have Portuguese sausage. Oh, it's so good with eggs and rice. Oh, it's to me, it's one of the essential foods. If you do come to Hawaii, just give it a try. It's like sausage, it's like hot dog, sort of, but it has a very interesting mix of spices in it. In terms of the tier list, I probably would say Portuguese sausage. I want to give it an A tier, but yeah, I guess I'd put B tier. I think that's pretty fair. It's good, not something I'd absolutely want to have all the time because it's super oily, but it's definitely a good flavor. Spam musubi. It's hard to beat spam musubi in terms of Hawaii. I think everyone in Hawaii loves spam musubi. We eat like the most spam, I think, in the country, probably the whole world. But spam musubi, it's so good. It has everything you need, right? It has a wrapper in the nori, the seaweed. It has rice, so you got your carbs and your energy. And it has spam, which is this very tasty, although some people don't like it, but it's very tasty. It's salty, it's warm, and you just put it all together, and you can eat a couple spam musubis for lunch. You'll be all set. This is one of the foods that I'd recommend everyone try when they come to Hawaii. I know spam has a bad reputation, maybe around the world, as not an attractive food, but here in Hawaii, when we make it with a little bit of like shoyu or teriyaki sauce with some rice and seaweed nori on top, oh, it's so good. And it's usually pretty cheap. You can buy these almost everywhere. 7-Eleven supposedly has the best one, but they're usually everywhere, food courts or other places. It's one of the best foods. So I think it's no surprise that, to me, spam musubi is an S tier food. Now the last food, which may surprise some people, it's taro chips. I have to say, I don't like poi, which is taro, but I really like taro chips. It's not so much the chip itself, it's the salt and the seasoning they put on it. And if you're on Oahu, there's a couple of really good places you can go and get taro chips, or you can buy at the supermarket. Taro chips are my favorite snack, I think. Inside of me, I would not want to share it. I'll usually share food, but with taro chips, I feel like I don't want to share. It's so good. And it's hard to buy. Like, it's a specialty food. You don't pick it up like, Pringles or Cheetos. It's a food that it's a little bit more expensive. It's local. And a lot of it depends on how it's prepared, but it's usually a little bit more expensive, so I don't get to eat it that much. But when I do get to eat it, oh, it's so good. My favorite taro chip place is on the island of Kauai, and it's in this small house in this small drive-by town. But they make such a good taro chip, and they put this garlic salt on it. Oh, it's so good. But let's talk about where this ranks. Taro chips, to me, that is S tier. For other people, they maybe don't like the taste of a taro chip. Kind of weird. I think when I first tried taro chips, I thought they were kind of weird. But when you taste the salt, oh, it's so good. The seasoning is just so strong, and I definitely love taro chips. All right, so here is my list. Here we have S tier. We have Acai Bowl, saimin, hurricane popcorn, loco moco, shave ice, spam musubi, taro chips at the top. Pretty respectable. A tier is Kalua Pork, Lau Lau, and pork hash. Also pretty respectable. B tier is Cocoa Puffs, Manapua, and Portuguese Sausage. C tier is Malasadas. And D tier is Haupia, Leei Ma, poi, and of course the Poke Bowl. Now what I want to do is I want to sort of rank at least the S tier, because I haven't really thought about this. When I have these really good foods, these 7 foods that I personally really like, but I haven't thought about which one I would put above the other. So I'm just gonna basically take the bottom half of the list. I'm gonna keep it the same. It's not in any particular order, but I think I'm curious just for myself. What would I consider the top food in Hawaii? I'm trying to think which are the foods that I could probably do without. I think that I'd have to move saimin. I think I'd have to move saimin down the list. Yeah, I think I'd have to move saimin down the list. I really like saimin. It's good. But I'm looking at all these foods and I'm like, man, which one could I do without? I think the next food I probably would have to move down the list. Boy, this is a tough one. I think it would be an acai bowl. I have to move it down the list. It's above saimin, but boy, it's tough. Okay, what else would I have to move down the list? I think it might have to be spam musubi. As hard as that is to say, that's a tough one. Spam musubi, to move it down the list. I think the next food is also hard. See, this is why it's so hard to do this in Hawaii, because you look at all these foods and they're all so good, but you just can't, you can't do it. I'm going to leave the loco moco where it is. That's tough. I'd rather have a loco moco than a spam musubi, an acai bowl, or a saimin, but boy, that's tough to leave it there, because that leaves me with these 3 little snack foods. I'm trying to think which is the least favorite out of these 3 that I would actually lay down and not eat it. That's what I'm trying to think right now. I think it's gonna be the hurricane popcorn. I love popcorn. I love hurricane popcorn. I love kakimochi, arare, furikake. I love that mix, but yeah, I think it has to go there. And now it's up between shave ice and Taro Chips. It's so hot now. I want a shave ice right now. Man, it pains me. It pains me. I think it's the heat. I'm gonna have to put Taro Chips as number 2, and then and the number 1 food for me, top tier food, the top tier food in Hawaii is shave ice. So, that's interesting. I never would have thought it would turn out that way, but when I look at it now, I guess that makes a lot more sense. If you're from Hawaii, I'd love to know what you think in terms of the ranking of these 18, I think it's 18 foods, but I would highly encourage people to try all of them. I rank some particularly lower than others, the D tier, but that shouldn't discourage people from trying it and liking it, because I think people do like those foods, and they might find the foods that I like at the top pretty terrible, which I'm totally okay with too. But these are to me, the best collection of foods, types of foods that you can eat in Hawaii. And there's a whole nother debate about which is the best of each dish. You know, what's the best saimin, the best acai bowl, the best loco moco, and shave ice. I mean, people argue about that all the time here. But I think these are just grabbing the iconic foods, the types of foods. I think this is pretty good. So thanks for watching, and aloha. And get some shave ice.